And everyone seems to come in on the 5 minutes. There we go.
Welcome everyone to this meeting on brain rules. We will be introducing the book Brain Rules here today. We'll try to discuss the first 4 chapters, and we'll also try to have a discussion. So please feel free to jump in if you have a comment or a question on things that are being said. But how we work together, we are always respectful of each other's views. The session is being recorded, so in case you don't want your face to be shown while you're speaking, please just turn off the camera. Use chat here for ideas and questions. We highly encourage everyone to talk between meetings. You could do that on either the Meetup group or on the LinkedIn page for the book club. And please do send suggestions and feedback to us on how we are doing, or if there is any book that you want us to pick up. Just as a reminder, we will continue today's discussion in a couple of weeks' time on 8th, and then Dr. Medina will be joining us on 22nd of July. So just to introduce ourselves, well, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Himanshu Jain. I'm a project management and a product management professional into training and coaching for last 4 years, but overall have been working for about 20 years now. And I train on project management, Agile and Six Sigma and that sort of family of courses. I have read the book. I am reading it and finding it fascinating. So looking forward to this discussion. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Himanshu. I'm Nicholas Lambro. I am a lecturer and a project management trainer. I work at the University of Westminster, and Himanshu and me have set up this project management book club just because we love books and project management essentially, and we are members of the responsible project management community, and we think that we can make a difference through project management. But otherwise, I am mainly a lecturer, and I enjoy teaching. And I see also in the audience that we do have some alumni present. I have read half the book because I am fighting with it, but it is a lovely book, I think. Very, very different from the books that we have had up to now. This is more like a summer book. You can just take it and read at leisure. It doesn't require your attention to understand what is going on. With the 2 books we did before this, the Tame Your Workflow and the Design, I forgot its name, Playbook.
Yeah.
Design Thinking, I've lost the thinking, yes. Were much more difficult books to follow because they were very comprehensive. So this one is a relaxing book, essentially, and we will be reading from it because its style is different. There are no pictures in this book, and I hope that you will have a chance to either read it or listen in as we talk about it. Thank you, Himanshu.
Would anyone from the audience like to introduce themselves?
I am Franco, and I am a project manager throughout my life in oil and gas industry, and volunteer of the PMI, and enthusiastic follower of the PM Book Club that I believe is a very good initiative. And also when I have a time, I just follow Nick and I bring his bag with his documents. So I assist Nick bringing his bag.
Yeah.
Thank you, Franco, and welcome.
Franco, we owe you a lot, actually, Franco. And you make a difference. Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the attendees?
I like give a basic introduction. My name is Sonali. I'm based in London. I am an engineer. I'm not a project manager though, but I'm trying to get into project management. So I'm already in technical management. I'm leading the critical software testing for our organization, but I am trying to get into people and project management as well. That's why I think it will be a good book for me to read and discuss. And I think book clubs, they sort of enforce discipline and they, make you finish the book and read the book and discuss the book. So I think, yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. I haven't read the book at all. I joined this book club yesterday. So I saw it on Meetup and I joined. So I'm just glad that I joined. I hope the discussion is uh, nice and fruitful for me. And then I can't wait to start reading this book.
Great. Well, thanks. Thanks for that, Sonali. Okay, last chance. Anyone else? Okay, well, we'll get started. So let us begin. This is Nick's favorite picture of the race getting started. And we start a month-long journey of reading this book. Also, let me just introduce this book. So Dr. Medina is a microbiologist by profession. And in this book, it's a very easy read, a very contemporary language has been used, but he's used a lot of stories to sort of introduce all of these different 12 rules that you see. So sleep, long-term memory, short-term memory, attention, wiring, survival, exercise, exploration, gender, vision, stress, and sensory integration. From these, we will be talking about 4 today, which are the exercise, sleep, stress, and wiring, how our brains are wired. So with that, can I pass it on to Nick to begin?
Indeed, thank you very much. And as I suggested, we will be different today in that we will be reading quite big chunks from the book. As always, we ask you to interrupt and say something whenever you feel like it. We are a nice family group. And I will also ask a few questions just to see if we do agree with Dr. Medina's points. He is an evolutionary anthropologist or neuroscientist, so a lot of evolution is part of his explanations, but I think that he gives some nice tips as we go along. So we will start with the introduction, and the introduction merges into the first chapter before you realize that you haven't changed chapter. And we'll do the 4 items. We'll do exercise, survival, sleep, and stress. We are not going to do wiring. Himanshu's short-term memory has gone a bit gaga there. Mine doesn't work in any case, that's why I can joke. And so let us move on and just get a feel of this book, which is a New York Times bestseller. And Dr. Medina has written quite a few similar books about brain rules. So my first problem was to understand the title itself. Are these rules about the brain, or is it the brain rules? And we better be careful. I'm not 100% sure how to read it, but it is all about work, home, and school. School, actually, in particular, and how we learn is going to become important. And now in project management, as we develop our team members, we do become almost a school teaches ourselves to our team. That is part of motivating and empowering people. So if we move on, please, Himanshu, on these, we're going to cover as many of these as possible. And this is exactly how the book actually starts. It says the very first line, go ahead and multiply the number 8,003,000. I wasn't planning to read it, so that number there by 2. In your head. And of course, we instinctively try and do that. I will continue reading. Can you do it in a few seconds? There is a young man who can double that number 24 times in the space of a few seconds. He gets it right every time. There is a boy who can tell you the precise time of day at any moment, even in his sleep. There is a girl who can correctly determine the exact dimensions of an object 20 feet away. There is a child who at age 6 drew such vivid and complex pictures, some people ranked her version of a galloping horse over one drawn by Da Vinci himself. Yet none of these children have an IQ greater than 70, which is a low IQ. I hope we agree on that. And this is the point. Sort of, Medina immediately attracts our attention, and that is going to be his style as we go along. He then says that the brain is an amazing thing, and I wish to capture the beginning of this book. Your brain may not be nearly as odd as the ones that we just saw, but it is no less extraordinary. Easily the most sophisticated information transfer system on the earth, your brain is fully capable of taking the little black squidges in this book and deriving meaning from them. That symbolism is important. To accomplish this miracle, your brain sends jolts of electricity crackling through hundreds of miles of wires composed of brain cells so small that thousands of them could fit into the period at the end of this sentence. Yeah, so he's giving us a picture of the brain and how much more complicated it is than the computers that are fascinating us at the moment. And he then talks about his 12 rules, and he tells us that his goal is to introduce us to 12 things we know about how the brain works. I call these brain rules. For each rule I present, he says, the science, introduce you to the researchers behind it, and then offer ideas for how the rule might apply to our daily lives, especially at work and school. We are not used to sitting at the desk for 8 hours a day, yeah? So immediately he hits us with something is wrong with the way that we live our lives now. From an evolutionary perspective, the word evolution that comes in early in the book, our brains developed while we walked and ran as many as 12 miles a day. Yes, and this is a theme, a recurring theme in the book, that we essentially walk and talk, if you wish. We are not designed to just sit down. The brain still craves this experience. That's why exercise boosts brain power, as we will see in what he calls brain rule number 2. Exercises outperform couch potatoes in long-term memory, reasoning, attention, and problem solving. And here we start seeing the manner in which he thinks, because he is going to prove everything, every statement he makes, he is actually going to prove, that is, tell us of the experiment that has given us the idea itself. He doesn't do anything without scientific proof, and he is going to introduce a Medina Grump factor in a moment. Yes, but he continues to say, as you no doubt have noticed, if you've ever sat through a typical PowerPoint presentation, people don't pay attention to boring things. I hope we are not doing this, but this is brain rule number 6, which is coming next week, next time we meet. You've got seconds to grab someone's attention and only 10 minutes to keep it. At 9 minutes and 59 seconds, you must do something to regain attention and restart the clock, something emotional and relevant. Also, the brain needs a break. That is why I use, he says, stories in this book to make many of my points. And I will pause now and start again so that I can use this 9-minute rule myself. He then says, further down, I am a nice guy, but I am a grumpy scientist. For a study to appear in this book, it has to pass what some of my clients calls MGF, the Medina Grump factor. That means the supporting research for each of my points must first be published in a peer-reviewed journal and then successfully replicated. Yes, and in this, he is very, very particular, and that is why we've got a little Mozart picture there. There is a great deal we do not know about the brain. Over and over in my career, he says, I have seen what distance there is between a gene, one's DNA instructions, and a behavior, how we actually act. It's very hard to say with certainty that a specific behavior is caused by a specific gene, or that changing X behavior will produce Y result. Occasionally, I would run across articles and books that made startling claims based on recent advances in inverted commas in brain science. Yes, and he has a very interesting point to say. The Mozart effect comes to mind. The popular idea that listening to classical music makes students better at maths, or the notion that analytical people are left-brain people and creative people are right-brain people, and each must be managed accordingly. Yes, and he immediately starts throwing in some doubts in what I believe we all think we know. Yes, for example, as soon as I reached this point myself, and he talked about left and right brain and actually cast doubt into this simple idea, I am thinking to myself, I've been caught here. I didn't fall for the Mozart effect, but it seems I have fallen for the left and right. And I'm sure that many people in the room will agree with me that this left-right idea is ingrained now in modern culture. And Medina says, actually, it is not true. Brain research still cannot, without equivocation, tell us how to become better teachers, parents, business leaders, or students. In addition to the idea you'll find within each chapter, I end each chapter with a few more potential ways to apply the research in our daily lives. But these are not prescriptions. They are hypotheses. They are assumptions. They are thoughts, essentially. If you try them, you will be doing your own little research project to see whether they work for you. Yeah, so he's giving us a warning here that he is not writing a popular book for the sake of being popular. He's writing a book to almost tell us in a nice manner what can be done. Yes? Though we know precious little about how the brain works, our evolutionary history tells us this. And he comes with these 4 steps, which will recur again in the book. The brain appears to be designed to solve problems related to surviving in an unstable outdoor environment and to do so in early constant motion. Yeah, so this is his idea of what the brain is all about. Yes, solving problems while we are moving continuously, solving new problems. I call this the brain's performance envelope, he tells us, and then he moves on to the survival. Yes, we've got this brain has evolved for us to survive. Yes, to survive in the great outdoors, we need to learn from our mistakes. That meant paying attention to certain things at the expense of others, and it meant creating memories in a particular way. Though we have been stuffing them into classrooms and cubicles for decades, our brains actually were built to survive in jungles and grasslands. We have not outgrown this. Yes, and here now slowly he starts coming close to our previous books when we were organizing environments, if you remember, for ideas and for design thinking and all that. Yes, we were creating spaces. We were not creating cubicles. We were not creating desks. Yes, so suddenly there is a resonance with other books that we have done in this book club. And he continues, because we don't fully understand how our brains work, we do dumb things. We try to talk on our cell phones and drive at the same time, even though it is literally impossible for our brains to multitask when it comes to paying attention. We have created high-stress office environments, even though a stressed brain is significantly less productive than a non-stressed brain. Our schools are designed so that most real learning has to occur at home. Taken together, what do the studies in this book show? Mostly this. If you wanted to create an education environment that was directly opposed to what the brain was good at doing, you probably would design something like a classroom. Yes, and immediately he challenges almost everything, or many things that we've got sacred. Yes, we are fighting for better education for everybody, and yet now there is a challenge that the type of education we're giving maybe has some faults. Yes, if you wanted to create a business environment that was directly opposed to what the brain was good at doing, you probably would design something like a cubicle. And if you wanted to change things, you might have to tear down both and start over. Blame it on the fact that brain scientists rarely have a conversation with teachers and business professionals, education majors and accountants, superintendents and CEOs. Unless you have the Journal of Neuroscience sitting on your coffee table, you are out of the loop. Yes, and now he gives us a little tip, unintentionally, he gives us a little tip which we have picked up in all our agile thinking, in all our design thinking that we've been talking about, and that is that we need to get together and become some sort of a team, and that team should design the best way of doing things. Again, how offices, how are evolving, are almost listening to Medina and many other voices that have come out. I am also intrigued at this point because we are still in lockdown. I think we are in lockdown at least. Yes, and many of us are parents and have done schooling at home. And therefore, a lot of the things that Medina is talking about resonate a bit more this year than they would have in different years because we are constrained in one place and we've become a home, an office, and a school all in one, and probably on the same desk, all of us. So there's a lot here to grasp, and Medina is giving us some clues why maybe we are frustrated and stressed. So he then moves on to survival. Yes, why your brain is really amazing, our brain is, and this first idea, brain rule number one, the human brain also evolved. Yes, it is something that is evolving and it has taken time. There is somewhere a survival strategy. Yes, the main reason the brain is there is for us to survive. There are two ways to beat the cruelty of a harsh environment. You can become stronger or you can become smarter. We did the latter. It seems most improbable that such a physically weak species like us could have actually added muscles to fight, and therefore we essentially become clever in order to survive. And the important thing, yes, and here is the first point that he actually makes, is that we can make things up. Yes, and he starts and says, one trait really does separate us from the gorillas: the ability to use symbolic meaning. Yes, when we see a five-sided geometrical shape, we're not stuck perceiving it as a pentagon. Yes, we can just as easily perceive the US military headquarters, which is a pentagon, or a Chrysler minivan. I'm sure this has meaning for some of you. Yes, and she is now touching really, we can move on a slide if you wish. We are now touching really on an observation, actually a Socratic observation, that we can use symbols. There is, Socrates started with all this and said that there must be some ideal world somewhere which helps us understand things. So when we see something, it is a symbol of something else usually, and through that we can infer things. Yes. So he then refers to a researcher. There are many researchers that are referred to in this book. Researcher Judy DeLoach calls this dual representational theory, the ability of us to see the same thing and interpret it differently. Stated formally, it describes our ability to attribute characteristics and meanings to things that don't actually possess them. Yes, and stated informally, we can make things up that aren't there. Yes, we are human because we can fantasize. And Medina is very particular, again, about this. We combine symbols to derive layers of meaning. It gives us the capacity for language and for writing down that language. It gives us the capacity to reason mathematically. It gives us the capacity for art. Combinations of circles and squares become geometry and cubist paintings, if that is what we want. Combinations of dots and squiggles become music and poetry. There is an unbroken intellectual line between symbolic reasoning and the ability to create culture. Listen, no other creature is capable of doing it. Yes, so we are caught directly. Medina just catches us and sort of now pushes us to where he really wants us to go, yes? The all-important human trait of symbolic reasoning helped our species not only survive, but actually thrive. Our evolutionary ancestors didn't have to keep falling into the same quicksand pit if they could tell others about it. Even better, if they learned to put up a warning sign. Yes, and that is the difference. Only humans tend to do that. Other animals do not have this ability. And this idea about warning signs actually triggered a thought in my mind, because what we've observed in the last years is with this disruptive thing that we've got, the internet, which we all have learned to love, is one thing that this new world, this internet world has brought us is the absence of warning signs. Yes, and suddenly we are in a world where there is so much information on the internet without any warning whether it is useful or not useful, a lie, a made up thing, or anything. And suddenly we are in a society that somehow doesn't know what to do. There's all this internet quicksand, if you wish, out there. And we have split our society into believing opposite things, totally opposite things, without meaning and without anything. We've got conspiracies here, we've got conspiracies there and everywhere, and people believe strongly in them. And I think that this is where the point sort of is, this is what Medina is saying. We have evolved to put warning signs, and I believe that at this moment, the internet doesn't have these warning signs. We haven't evolved to work with the internet. But let us continue. Yes, we have adapted to variation itself. Yes, we are actually working with risk management, with uncertainty, beautiful project management terms, that is, project management has absorbed these terms, yes? For the first few million years, the record is not very impressive, yes? Let's go a step back to the beginning of humankind. We mostly just grabbed rocks and smashed them into things. Scientists, perhaps trying to salvage some of our dignity, called these stones hand axes. So he's now even playing with us. A million years later, we still grabbed hand axes, that is stones, but we began to smash them into other rocks, making them more pointed. Now we had sharper rocks. It wasn't much, but it was enough to begin untethering ourselves from a sole reliance on our East African womb. Yes, he's very, very conscious of life starting from East Africa and the savannas of East Africa, and he's going to mention that a few times in the book, yes? Then things started to get interesting. We created fire and started cooking our food. Eventually, we migrated out of Africa in successive waves, our direct Homo sapiens ancestors making the journey as little as 100,000 years ago. Then, 40,000 years ago, something almost unbelievable happened. Our ancestors suddenly took up painting and sculpture, creating fine art and jewelry. Yes, these are great moments that actually are forged by the brain itself. Yes, this change was both abrupt and profound. 37,000 years later, we were making pyramids. Yes, so from the first painting on a cave to the pyramids is just 3,000 years. That is almost historical distances, time distances. Yes, 37,000 years later, yes, 5,000 years after that, we are making rocket fuel. This is how quickly we advanced once the brain took its modern form, maybe. Many scientists think our growth spurt can be explained by the onset of dual representation ability. Yes, the symbolism. And many think our dual representation ability, along with physical changes that precipitated it, can be explained by a nasty change in the weather. Yes, and suddenly we now, Medina is going to take us actually to a climate change, but this climate change, not like the future one, but the one in the past, is the one that actually, according to neuroscientists today, made our brain what it is now, sort of, if you wish, accelerated it. Yes, from being unbearably hot to being substantially cold. This is what happened about 100,000 years ago. The change was enough to shake us out of our comfortable trees, but it wasn't violent enough to kill us when we landed. Landing was only the beginning of the hard work, however. Faced with grasslands rather than trees, we were rudely introduced to the idea of flat. Yes, we were mostly on trees, now we are on a flat space. We quickly discovered that our new digs were already occupied. The locals had co-opted the food sources, and most of them were stronger and faster than we were. Yes, it is disconcerting to think that we started our evolutionary journey on an unfamiliar horizontal plane with the words, "Eat me, I'm prey," tapped on our evolutionary butts. Yes, so suddenly the land becomes different, the trees almost disappear, and we are in an earth where we are actually the weakest link. Yes, we are actually food. Yes, we are at the bottom of the food chain. We now pride ourselves being at the top of the food chain, and we are destroying the food chain itself, but it doesn't matter. Yes, you might suspect that the odds against our survival were great. You would be right. Yes, these are very bad odds for us. The founding population of our direct ancestors is not thought to have been much larger than 2,000 individuals. Some think the group was as small as a few hundred. How then did we go from such a wobbly, fragile minority population to a staggering tide of humanity, 7 billion strong and growing? This is essentially what he is trying to tell us, and therefore show us what we are doing wrong today. Yes, there is only one way, according to Richard Potts, director of the Human Origins Program at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. We gave up stability, yes, and we adapted to variation itself. Those unable to rapidly solve new problems or learn from mistakes didn't survive long enough to pass on their genes. The net effect of this evolution was that rather than becoming stronger, we became smarter. It was a brilliant strategy. We went on to conquer other ecological niches in Africa. Then we took over the world. Yes, and that idea that instead of becoming stronger, we became smarter is why actually the size of our brain and the shape of our brain is different than other animals. Yes, we ended up with bigger and bigger brains. Yes, adapting to variation provides a context for symbolic reasoning. The symbolic comes back, but it hardly explains our unique ability to invent calculus and write romance novels. After all, many animals create a database of knowledge themselves, and many of them make tools, not very important tools, but few tools. One of the random genetic mutations that gave us an adaptive advantage involved walking upright on two legs. Yes, so now we go to the second move, the second belief that rising to two legs was a big difference. Walking on two legs instead of four both freed up our hands and used fewer calories. It was energy efficient. Our ancestral bodies used the energy surplus not to pump up our muscles, but to pump up our minds. This is a brain book, remember. This led to the masterpiece of evolution, the region that distinguishes human from other creatures. It is a specialized area of the frontal lobe, just behind the forehead, called the prefrontal cortex. What does the prefrontal cortex do? We got our first hints from a man named Phineas Gage, who suffered the most famous occupation industry in the history of brain science. Yes, now this gentleman here, whose picture is there on the left, had this nasty accident, and that piece of iron actually went through his head as suggested again from the picture in front of us, and he survived. But he had damaged essentially the prefrontal lobe, and therefore we could then tell that that part of the brain was responsible for certain things. Gage is a story that has been used in other books before, but let me introduce him. He is introduced in the book, and indeed he is at a time when photographs existed. Gage was a popular foreman of a railroad construction crew. He was funny, clever, hardworking, and responsible, the kind of guy any father would be proud to call son-in-law. Yes, again, he's making stories, Medina is. On September 13, 1848, he set an explosives charge in the hole of a rock using a camping iron, a 3-foot rod about an inch in diameter. And you can see that there. The charge blew the rod into Gage's head. It entered from under the eye and destroyed most of his prefrontal cortex. Miraculously, Gage actually survived, but he became tactless, impulsive, and profane. He left his family and wandered aimlessly from job to job. His friends said he was no longer Gage. Yes, Gage's case was the first real evidence that the prefrontal cortex governs several uniquely human cognitive talents called executive functions. Yes, solving problems, maintaining attention, and inhibiting emotional impulses. In short, this region controls many of the behaviors that separates us from other animals. And then there is a bracket, and from teenagers. So it seems that teenagers are not have not developed that part of the brain as much as grown-ups. Yes. And then he goes on to give us more information to tell us that we are actually three brains in one. Yes, the prefrontal cortex, however, is only the newest addition to the brain. Three brains are tucked inside your head, and parts of their structure took millions of years to design. Your most ancient neural structure in the brain stem or lizard is the brain stem or lizard brain. This rather insulting label reflects the fact that the brain stem functions the same way in you as in a Gila monster, in a lizard. The brain stem controls most of your body's housekeeping chores, breathing, heart rate, sleeping, walking. Yes, this is another part of the brain for the standard functions, if you wish, of humans. Yes, these neurons are always active, keeping your brain buzzing along whether you are sleeping or wide awake. Yes, the breathing, we continue breathing, for example, when we are asleep. Yes, sitting atop your brain stem is your mammalian brain. Yes, most of its functions involve what some researchers call the four F's: fighting, feeding, fleeing, and the fourth F is not mentioned here. Instead, it is reproductive behavior. So we have to keep our modesty. Yes? So fighting, feeding, fleeing, and reproductive behavior is what the second part of the brain does. Yes? So we've got the breathing bits, the automatic bits, then we've got the active bits, second part of the brain, and then we will come to the prefrontal thing. Yes, several parts of the mammalian brain play a large role in the brain rules. Yes, this book is going to talk about these items. The amygdala, is it there? Yes, there it is. Yep, thank you. Allows you to feel rage or fear or pleasure. Yes, and we see these three words: rage, fear, and pleasure, all of them being dictated or governed by the amygdala. These three words are going to appear many times as a threesome in our vocabulary here. Yes, the hippocampus, further there to the bottom right, converts your short-term memories into long-term, and the thalamus is one of the most active, well-connected parts of the brain, a control tower for the senses. Yes, and we will be meeting these as we go along. Yes, and the book then continues, yes, that all these things are folded into a brain, and you wouldn't know that all these things exist just by looking at the brain. Yes, when you look at the brain, the cortex looks homogeneous, somewhat like the shell of a walnut. Yes, and that would fool you, but then this gentleman had his accident, and we could start distinguishing parts of the brain. Scientists found that as our brain evolved, our heads also did. They were getting bigger at the time. Yes, so now we've got an interesting point, an evolutionary point. Let's try that. When I read that, I was a bit intrigued. Yes, so our brain is becoming bigger, but the pelvis, the birth canal that is, can be only so wide. Yes, the pelvis, actually our pelvis has not evolved as our brain, our head has evolved. Yes, and some people think, oops, there is something here that is not going very right. Because this is bonkers if you are giving birth to children with larger and larger heads. A lot of mothers and babies died on the way to reaching an anatomical compromise. Human pregnancies are still remarkably risky without modern medical intervention. The solution, and I did not know that, give birth while the baby's head is small enough to be able to go through the birth canal. Yes, the problem, we create childhood. Yes, we are one of the few animals that are incapable of surviving when we are born. Yes, most mammals reach adulthood within months. Our long childhood gave the brain time to finish its developmental programs outside the womb. It also created a creature vulnerable to predators for years and not reproductively fit for more than a decade. That's an eternity when you live in the great outdoors as we did for so many eons. This is, I think, I like that when I read that. Yes, but the trade-off was worth it. Yes, it was no use having babies who took years to grow if the adults were eaten before they could finish their thoughtful parenting. Yes, we weaklings needed to outcompete the big boys on their home turf, leaving out new home, our new home safer for sex and babies. We decided on a strange strategy. We decided to try to get along with each other. We created societies. This in order to survive. Now that our brain is growing bigger, we have babies, babies need nurturing, nurturing need protection, protection needs societies. Yes, and funnily enough, he has now moved into what is an observation again from ancient times. This is Aristotle, that we are political animals. Yes, the fact that uh, philosophers have observed that a long, long time ago, that this is what distinguishes us, is that we live in societies, we live in polis, we are political animals. Yes, and now neuroscience gives us an explanation, a physical explanation of how the body has evolved to arrive at the same conclusion. I find this quite fascinating, and now we start talking about teamwork, about cooperation, about motivation, and really we've arrived, if you wish, at the modern human. Yes, and he actually took his time to get there, and I also took my time to get there. Yes, so he says now, why did I want to spend time walking you through the brain survival strategies? Because they aren't just part of our species' ancient history, because they give us real insight into how humans acquire knowledge. We improvise off a database, thinking symbolically about our world. We are predisposed to social cooperation, which requires constantly reading other people, yes, to try and understand the other members of the society we live in. Along with the performance envelope, these concepts determine at the most fundamental level how our brains work. Now that you've gotten the gist of things, let's dive into the details. Yeah, so he took his time to get us here, and therefore now he has created these rules. This is the first rule, brain rule number one, that the human brain evolved. Yes, and if you have agreed with what he says now, everything else he talks about will be easier to understand and comprehend. Yes, and I wish to read this because at the end of every chapter, this is on the book style itself, at the end of every chapter, there is a page like this, which is the whole chapter in one. Okay, the human brain appears to be designed to solve problems related to surviving in an unstable outdoor environment, to do so in nearly constant motion. We started with a lizard brain to keep us breathing, then added a brain like a cat's, and then topped those with a thin layer known as the cortex, the third and powerful, if you wish, human brain. We adapted to change itself after we were forced from the trees to the savanna when climate swings disrupted our food supply. Going from 4 legs to 2 to walk on the savanna freed up energy to develop a complex brain. And symbolic reasoning is a uniquely human talent. It may, and he does use the word may, it may have a reason from our need to understand one another's intentions and motivations. This allowed us to coordinate within a group, which is how we took over the earth. Yes, and I think that is an important little point to at least pause for a moment. Do we have any comments by anyone before we move on, or do we have time to move on? I'm not sure anymore what time it is.
Nick, we are about 25 past 6.
Okay, and we only did one chapter. My fault. My brain does not work. I find this book fascinating, Himanshu.
It is.
And clearly I should have rehearsed it better, but I didn't act socially. Please
I find this book
read
really
if you can.
fascinating, as you said, Nick, because, I mean, to understand how the brain works, it is important because it may affect the way that we behave. I mean, it is one key that allow us to interpret the life, the others, and what we do. I mean, and this concept that it is a result of the evolution, I mean, is a concept that has got developed in the last century. And I was reading, connected to the theme of this book, about the behaviors that are not taught, but are the result of the natural selection. The principle, for instance, of the causality and the principle of the intentionality are not taught us by parents or by somebody else, but is one intrinsic capability of our brain, because it is the byproduct of the natural selection. So what you have been reading is really fascinating, because it's opening a key to interpret our behavior. And I mean, not to mention the importance that it has for a project manager, that whatever he does through people.
Indeed, I was fascinated to find project management words in the end of this chapter, like teamwork and motivation and all that. That is, it appears to me that project management itself is evolving in a manner that actually says the best way for us to move ahead is actually to work together in a social environment and essentially protect each other by doing so, and hence the social aspect. And I find this quite fascinating. I had not realized that project management was a product of human evolution, if you wish. But so it seems. And as he goes on, he does have some other very nice insights. The next insight, for example, about exercise, which unfortunately I don't have time to do. This is the first time we acted as a book club. We read the bits of the book itself. But on the exercise bit, he actually explains why exercise is good. And it is good because it allows the brain, the blood actually to move around and to help thoughts. He makes a very nice, interesting point. So I implore you, please, if you can find the book, to read the exercise chapter, because when I saw it and I thought, what is he going to tell us now? To exercise, to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that will somehow, if we don't do this, it won't be good. And yet he explains it from a neuroscientist's point of view in such a beautiful way that I myself may start exercising soon. And in the 4th chapter, yes?
No, go ahead, Nick.
No, and I'm just saying, in the 4th chapter, when he will actually touch on stress going through sleep, yes? The sleep chapter is beautiful because it does say that we do have different sleep patterns. Some people
Yes.
like waking up in the morning, some people are more evening people and all that. Some people like to have a nap, and he tries to explain what sleeping actually is. And he actually explains that this must be important. If we spend 1/3 of our time, 8 hours out of 24, essentially sleeping, it must be important. And it's a fascinating thing to understand. And then he moves to stress and depression, which is the first, to me, difficult chapter to read. And he starts with this awful experiment of a dog that feels so helpless that it reaches a state when it doesn't even move when you are punishing it, because it has decided that it cannot run away from a problem. And that is what essentially the depression is. You know, these are lovely points that he is making. He is giving an explanation to things that sometimes we take for granted. And
Well,
I should stop there. I did too much talking. I apologize for that, but there we go.
well, no, I think Nick, it was a very good overview. We hope that it has inspired people enough to start reading the book, and we will have another very good conversation in a couple of weeks' time when we continue this discussion. And on 22nd of July, we will have the author answering our questions on this book. So, well, with that, thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
With questions, please, to stop me stalking. Thank you.
Thank you.